This is the 7th session of the Zoho CRM API learning series. And in this session, we'll be discussing the OpenAPI specification, or more commonly OAS, for Zoho CRM APIs. So over the next hour, we'll unpack what OAS is, why it's important, how Zoho CRM leverages it, and how you can take full advantage of it. Before we dive right into the topic, let me start with a story that most developers can relate to. A product team was building a new integration between their SaaS app and CRM. In this case, let's just consider Zoho CRM. So they had access to the docs, the endpoints were defined, but as the project grew, something else became clear. The integration wasn't just about calling APIs, but it was about collaborating. The front end team needed mock data, the back end team needed consistent request and response models, the QA team needed to validate inputs, and the DevOps team wanted to automate API contract testing. Each team ended up referencing different things, different docs, API responses, code snippets, and even small changes created breaks in communication. So the real problem here, they didn't have a shared versioned machine readable contract that all teams and tools could rely on. That's where OpenAPI specification, or OS, becomes a game changer. So, like I said, the solution, OS. So this story and thousands like it is the reason the OpenAPI specification exists. So the OS gives your API a single source of truth. With it, you know exactly what the request should look like, what the response will be, what the headers to send, what fields are required, and even what values are accepted. It's not just documentation, it's a contract and a code generator all in one. Now, let's explore how Zoho CRM supports this with its complete OpenAPI specification and how you can leverage it for seamless integrations. Let me walk you through the journey we'll take today, and we'll do it like a story most developers know all too well. You're working on an integration project, and your goal, connect your app to Zoho CRM. You open the API docs, and now what? You ask yourself, is there a standard way to understand and use these APIs? That's where we begin with what OpenAPI is. Next, you hit a snag. You're not sure which fields are mandatory, what the response will look like, or how to test your request. This brings us to why OS becomes necessary and how it removes the ambiguity. Then you discover the magic. OS isn't just a spec, it powers SDK generation, docs, testing tools, and even mock servers. So we'll explore the benefit it brings to you as a developer. Now, you learn that Zoho CRM offers full OS support. We'll dive into how Zoho CRM uses OS and how you can make the most of it. Now comes the choice. We have the Postman collection, we have the SDKs, and we also have the OS. We'll compare them so you know when to use what. Next, we'll pop the hood on the actual OS file components, what's inside, what each part does, and why it matters. You'll see where to find the OS files for Zoho CRM and how they're organized module-wise for flexibility. Then comes the part that you've been waiting for, how to read and interpret the OS files so you can generate SDKs, test APIs, simulate them, and in short, just reduce the API lifecycle. And finally, we'll walk you through how to generate your SDK step by step so you can walk out of the session with something real. We'll close with a Q&A. So bring your questions, whether you're integrating for the first time or looking to scale, we are here to help. Now, coming to the most basic question, what is OS? OS is a standard way to define REST APIs in JSON or YAML, and it serves as a single consistent source of truth about how your API works. What makes it powerful is that it's both human readable and machine readable. That means developers can read it like a blueprint, and tools like SDK generators or Swagger UI can consume it automatically. So it defines everything right from endpoints, parameters, request and response format, authentication, and even schema validations. So think of it as the contract between your API and the developers who use it, clearly defined, version controlled, and testable. So this is how an OS file looks for the blueprint API in Zoho CRM. So in the upcoming slides, we'll discuss in depth about the different components of OS files. So for starters, this is how all the JSON files, specification files are organized in GitHub. for Zoho CRM APIs. Now, what it is like without OS. So even with great documentation, building and scaling integration introduce a new set of challenges. Why? Because multiple teams are involved. Like I said, front end team needs to know what to send, back end team needs to wire it up, QA wants to validate responses, DevOps might want automated contract tests, etc. So without a machine readable contract like the OS, everyone's referencing docs manually, which works but doesn't scale well. You can't easily generate SDKs, build mock servers, or set up test automation without extra effort. And even a small mismatch, uh, say a missing field or an incorrect data type, could lead to a failed request. So the issue isn't unclear documentation, it's that you don't have a single source of truth that's both human and machine readable. That's exactly what OS brings to the table. So with OS, what happens? Developers build faster. So instead of hunting through, different sources of documentation or wikis, you have one source of truth, which is the OS file. So it defines every endpoint, different methods, the parameters, request and response bodies, authentication schemas, etc. So that means zero guesswork. Every input and output is documented and validated upfront. So you know exactly what payloads to send and what responses to expect. Tools like Swagger and Redoc can instantly turn your OS file into beautiful interactive docs. Your IDE can give you autocomplete, real-time validation, and warnings for breaking changes. And with a single command, you can generate client SDKs in any major language without writing any boilerplate. So the OS file becomes your integration engine by powering mock servers, test weights, Postman collections, CI/CD pipelines, and more. So in short, OS is how modern developers build integrations faster, cleaner, and with confidence. Now, what does Zoho actually provide when we say OS for Zoho CRM APIs? First off, it's built on OpenAPI Specification version 3.0, which is the industry standard. That means it's compatible with tools like Swagger, Postman, OpenAPI Generator out of the box. So you might have noticed that the API, OpenAPI specification for Zoho CRM isn't delivered as one giant JSON file. So like I showed you in that image, it is modularized. So it is split across multiple files, one for each functional group. For example, records, modules, users, attachments, and so on. So this isn't just a design choice, it's a deliberate decision to make things easier for developers and more scalable for the platforms. So first, it keeps things modular. So most developers aren't using every single Zoho CRM API. So rather than forcing them to load or work with a massive monolithic file, you get just what you need, nothing more. So second, tools like Swagger UI and Postman perform better and faster with smaller specs. If you've ever tried to open a huge OS file, you know it can lag, freeze, or be hard to navigate. So splitting it solves that. Third, it's about the maintainability. Zoho's API team can update individual parts, say the leads or the notes module, without touching or risking bugs in unrelated areas like users or tasks. Like the very popular saying goes among developers, if it works, don't touch it. So this proves that. It's also developer friendly. Let's say you want to generate a custom SDK or you want to use a mock server. You can just combine the pieces relevant to your use case. For example, if you want to use only records and notes, then you can very well do that because the OS specs are available as different files. And lastly, it keeps things digestible. So you're not overwhelmed by hundreds of endpoints at once. You can focus only on one domain at a time. So the split file approach actually enhances usability, performance, and clarity. So all while keeping things flexible for you. So it also includes full OAuth 2.0 support. So authentication flows are clearly defined within the spec. So there is no guesswork involved around headers or tokens. And importantly, the entire spec is aligned with Zoho CRM's latest version of APIs, which is the version 8. So in short, Zoho CRM's OS is a production-ready, complete, and designed approach to plug directly into your dev workflow. Now, let's take a moment to compare the three most commonly used tools in the Zoho CRM ecosystem. So one is OS, the other one is the Postman collection, and then we have the Zoho CRM SDKs. So we'll compare them based on the features such as SDK stub generation, live API testing, etc. So, so this is particularly from a developer's perspective. So coming to SDK stub generation, OAS is powerful because it supports automatic SDK generation in multiple languages using tools like Swagger, CodeGen, or OpenAPI Generator. Postman doesn't support this. You can test requests, but you cannot auto-generate SDKs. Coming to Zoho CRM's SDKs, they are pre-built and maintained by Zoho, but they are limited to specific languages. Coming to live API testing, with OS, live testing is possible using Swagger UI, which is interactive and useful for exploring endpoints. Postman shines here because it's built for testing APIs and it provides a very friendly UI for request and response debugging. Coming to Zoho CRM SDKs, they do support live interaction, but you need to set up OAuth tokens first. So it's not like plug and play like Postman. Coming to the editability and extendability, OS file is fully editable, which means you can extend or customize it, add examples, tweak schemas, or even regenerate SDKs based on the updates. For example, if you are developing an application and you have your specs in the which have followed the OS format, then you can use the if you want to integrate with Zoho CRM, then you can use only the required OS files for Zoho CRM APIs, and then you can generate SDKs in your preferred language, or you can generate docs. You can build mock servers to test them out. Coming to Postman collection, in terms of editability and extendability, Postman collection, while they're useful, they're typically read-only unless you manually edit them or fork and modify from the collection. Zoho CRM SDKs, on the other hand, they are pre-compiled, so you don't really edit them unless you fork the source and make custom changes, which is not the norm. Coming to the language agnostic feature, OS is truly a language agnostic. Whether you're using Go, Kotlin, Swift, or Rust, you can generate a matching SDK. Postman also supports requests across languages, but it doesn't help with SDK generation. So the Zoho CRM SDKs are language specific, where you only use the one built for your platform. Coming to tool ecosystem, for OS, you're tapping into a vast ecosystem. We have tools like Swagger, Redoc, Starlight, OpenAPI Generator, etc., that work off the same standard. Postman is highly popular in the API testing world. It's fast, easy, and visual. Coming to Zoho SDKs, they're focused, they're built for Zoho CRM only, but that means that they come with deep feature support out of the box, like automatic token refreshing, pagination handling, and record modeling. So what you use depends exactly on your use case. So the takeaway is that if you want flexibility and automation across different languages, you can go for OAS. You can use Postman collection for quick API testing and sharing request collections. And you can rely on Zoho SDKs if you're working within supported languages and want a reliable, ready-to-go solution for CRM integration. Now, where to find the OS file? So this is our official documentation for OS for Zoho CRM APIs. Our OS files are hosted on GitHub. So there's a link for the repository here. So because they're built for version 8 APIs, you have the version 8 folder here. So when you open this, you can see the different JSON files for different APIs. For example, you have one for profiles, you have one for the metadata of portals, you have one for portals, you have one for pipeline, org, and so on. The record operations that you do, like creating a record in a module, or getting a record from a module, all that module-based APIs, they are under records.json. So this is where you can find the OS file for Zoho CRM APIs. So at the end of the session, I'll share all these links so that they come in handy for when you want to refer to them. Moving on, components of Zoho CRM OS files. Okay, so the main components of an OS file is are info, servers, paths, components, and security. So let's look at an OS file and break down the core sections. So let me just open any API. I'll just open the currencies. So this JSON file has the specification for all the APIs that are related to currencies. So you have info, servers, paths, and then you have security. So OpenAPI, this means it uses 3.0.0 specification, and under info, this includes the API's title, version, and description. This could act like the metadata for your API. So this acts like a cover page for your API. Coming to servers, this tells your tools or SDKs where the API actually lives. So this is like the domain. So HTTPS zoops.com is the domain API domain to which your SDK or your tool should make API calls to. And based on the data center that your data lies in, this will change from EU to IN to JP, etc. Coming to paths. So the path section is where the magic actually happens. So this defines all the available endpoints, the HTTP methods that you use for the API, and what parameters and responses to expect. So when you can see, as you can see here, currencies has a get method. It also has a post method. We have a put method, and then there is another get method to get a currency by its ID. So etc. So whatever endpoints your API has, you define them under path. So under path, this will be the endpoint, and under the specific method, you have the operation ID, and under responses, you have all the responses that the API can give you. So it could be a 204 response, it could be a 200 response, it could be a 500 response, and for some APIs, there is a 400 series as well. So all of that is mentioned here. Coming to security, so as you know, Zoho CRM APIs follow the OAuth 2.0 protocol for authentication, which is the industry standard protocol. So every API call has to be authorized with an access token, and tokens are scope based. For example, if you would like to access only if you'd like to fetch only the records from the leads module, then you could use the scope that allows you to only do that. So for every API, we have a set of scopes which you give under security key. So this JSON array will have all the scopes necessary to access this API. Similarly, we have the security section for the post request, the put request, etc. So let me just copy this and open this in an IDE. So when you see this, so under responses, we have 204, 200, 500. When you just click, you can see the different, how the responses are constructed. So we have the response wrapper here. So when you come inside, you can see what kind of response the API throws. So when you come to, let's just take an API that has an input. So under request body, we have the schema defined here. So in the body wrapper, you have everything that is required. So for currency, when you give the input, currency is your root, and then the different fields or the different input keys that this API can take are listed here. So it takes the ISO code, which is of the type string. It takes the symbol, again, which is of the type string. We have the created time of the date time format. We have a Boolean key is active. We have the exchange rate along with the pattern here, which is the regex pattern. So depending on what input the API takes, we have all the possible keys and the data types listed in your request wrapper. Similarly, for responses, all of them is defined in the response wrapper spec. So, like I said, these are the components of Zoho CRM's OAS files. We have info, servers, paths, components, and security. Info is like the cover page that has the title, version, and description of your API. Servers will have the base URL. Paths will have the different endpoints along with the different responses, requests, and response. And components will have the schema for payloads. Like I said, the what kind of input the API accepts, the different data types. And then under security, we have the different OAuth scopes and flows. So interpreting the OS file, which we did just recently, and then generating an SDK from the OS file. So like I said, this is our repository on GitHub that hosts the Zoho OS files for Zoho CRM APIs. So for simplicity's sake, let's just try this with Swagger. So here I have the API hub open here. I click create new and try to import the API. So when I'm trying to import the API, let's say I'm working with the roles. So I have the corresponding JSON here. So I copy this link, paste it here, and then you can choose the owner and visibility of your project, import it. You can give a name and the version, and I'm importing the definition here. So when I import the definition, you can see the different endpoints for this API, and then we have the different schemas, the response wrapper, body wrapper, etc. And this is a very visual way of trying out your APIs. So if you're comfortable, you can authorize by giving your client ID and client secret and choosing the required scopes here. And you can try the APIs out right here on using Swagger. So generating an SDK, I come to CodeGen, client SDK. Let's try with Python. So I have the so I have the zip file downloaded here. So here you can see I have the required specifications for the roles API. So you can open this in your IDE. So I have contact roles here, which is already open. So under contact roles, you can see we have different files that we need. We have the requirements.txt, we have the test requirements.txt, we have the README file, etc. Under docs, you have the different markdown files that you can use to refer to when you're actually creating or using the OS file. And then coming to the sample runner that we have in our folder repository here. So we have a sample runner here. So this is a sample Python file. So the reason we have a script here is that this acts as a ready to run example where you run an SDK using the OpenAPI spec for Zoho CRM APIs. So this acts like a quick start without setup hassle. So it helps you, hit the ground running. You don't need to write code from scratch to test if the SDK was generated and installed properly. You can this also demonstrates the auth flow and API usage. So it actually includes the sample code for OAuth token configuration, if you can see here. So it has all the required import statements, and then it has the different methods to generate access token from a refresh token. Also create refresh token when you have the authorization code or the grant token. So initialization part is of the API client is taken care of here, and it also has an example for fetch record and create records in the leads module. So this is already there. So this also validates your environment. It ensures that the SDK works with your current Python version where the dependencies are already installed, and you can easily set up auth credentials. So for new users or developers that are new to Zoho CRM APIs or the SDK, this script acts as a minimal working reference point. So it's a great tool for new users. So let me just copy this. So here, so like I said, it has all the import statements. It has the methods to generate access token from refresh token. It has also the method to create a refresh token when you give the authorization code. So like I said, Zoho CRM APIs are authorized using access tokens. So in according to OAuth 2.0 flow, every API call must be authorized using an access token. So I'm sure many of you are aware of the OAuth 2.0 flow. So where you actually go to the API console and register your application, where you get a client ID and client secret. So here, uh, instead of hard coding the values here in your SDK code, you can create an environment file where you can have these as variables. So once you enter these values from your API console, and you have an access token and refresh token or an authorization code, when you give the values here, this is a one-time process. So which means once you have your environment file set up properly with the required values, you can just reference them in your code. So here I've referenced them. I've referenced the refresh token, client ID, client secret from the environment file. So this just removes the need to hard code your confidential information like client ID, client secret, and refresh tokens. So coming to our sample file. So this is the one for get roles. So I've removed all the unwanted methods here. We don't need the fetch record and the create record methods here. Instead, we need the get roles API. So under default API, you will find all the, so if you come to docs here, so under docs, we have the default API markdown file. So when you come here, you actually have an example for every API under roles, for every endpoint under roles. So as you can see, this is the one for creating roles. So you can know that this is the method name and how you can reference this in your sample file. So I have a method here and I have used the default API. So when you just use the dot notation here, you get the APIs available. You get the different methods available for this one. So let's just go with get roles. So, and then I have again authorized in my main file with an access token, and then I have used the method here, which is I'm calling the fetch record method here. So let's just try running this. So when I run the SDK, you can see I have the API response here. So this will be the same response when you try this API out in Postman. So these are the contact roles for your org in Zoho CRM. So without doing a lot, because every spec is already defined, we could easily generate an SDK using the OAS file. So if you want to use this in Postman, so this is Postman, where you click import and then you give the raw URL here. So let's just try another one. Let's just try the blueprint. So I copy the link. I go to Postman, paste the link here. And then because we are working with OS files, we have to select the OpenAPI 3.0 specification here. And then we import it. So I have the blueprint here. So you can see the folder structure is created. So if you're creating a blueprint for, you can create a blueprint for any module here. So we have the actions under blueprint. We have get blueprint and update blueprint here. So when you go to get blueprint, the module API name again is available. variable, record ID is a variable, actions and blueprint is the endpoint and the resource. So when you come to update a blueprint, you can see again you're giving the module API name and the record ID, and then coming to body, you can see the different keys that you need to access this API. So if you'd like to update a blueprint's transition or a stage, you have all the necessary key value pairs here with just placeholders where you can replace these values with the values that you need. So this is how you import an OS file into Postman. So using this OS file in Postman, you can probably generate documentation or use it based on what your business scenario is. So other tools that use OS, we know Swagger UI and Editor. We also have Redoc, and we have Postman where you can import the files as OS files. We have the OpenAPI generator, we have Stoplight Studio, and we also have Insomnia. Some of the most common questions developers ask when working with APIs, especially when using the OS. Can I generate SDKs in any language? Yes, thanks to the OpenAPI generator, you can generate SDKs in over 40 languages, including Python, Java, C Sharp, Ruby, TypeScript, etc. So you're not tied to a specific tech stack. Are these SDKs production ready? The SDKs generated from OS are mostly production ready. The only thing is you'll need to configure authentication, specifically the OAuth tokens, and optionally you can also fine tune error handling or retry logic based on your needs, like I just demonstrated. And then can I test APIs using OS? Absolutely. You can plug the OS file into Swagger UI and try out live requests from the browser, like I showed you earlier. And if the backend isn't ready yet, you can just run a mock server from the spec and simulate real responses. Because everything is already there, it is easier to simulate real responses. So it's perfect for early integration testing. How do I validate payloads before sending API requests? So this is where tools like Swagger Editor or Spectral shine. They let you check whether your request body matches the schema in the spec. So you don't have a lot of guesswork where you catch problems early before they hit your API. So with OS, you get SDKs, testing tools, documentation, validation, mock APIs, all from one source of truth, which is the OS file. So that's the power of a standardized spec. So it also, because you avoid a lot of back and forth, a lot of referring different docs, writing code from scratch, you have one OS file which helps you to develop faster, test faster. So you reduce the time taken in the entire API lifecycle itself. So quick recap and key takeaways. Um, First, Zoho CRM supports OpenAPI 3.0 across all version 8 APIs. So that gives you a rock solid foundation for integrating using a spec that's both human readable and machine friendly. So you can generate SDKs in your preferred language. You can test the APIs live with Swagger UI. You can simulate calls using mock servers, and you can also validate payloads, all using the same spec file. But more importantly, like I said, it shrinks your API lifecycle. So design is now schema first. So docs and SDKs are generated from a single source of truth. So you can test early using mocks. Client teams can onboard themselves. Um, and when the API changes, all you have to do is just update one spec, and everything still stays in sync. So that's the power of OpenAPI, and that's why Zoho CRM offers full support. So this brings us to the end of the presentation.